Today, we're diving into a part of digital wellness that we don't quite recognize. And I have Kylen with me today from Defender Shield, who is an expert within EMF protection. Kylen, thanks so much for joining us today. And thanks so much for letting us use your spot in this beautiful podcast setup.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk about the topic I deal with every single day and have for many years.
Yeah, and please share your story and what got you into developing, products for EMF protection and what got you interested in EMF protection to begin with.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy story, actually. And my personal story is I was an athlete all the way through college. I was a swimmer, and I started that at 3, 4 years old, and I never stopped. And I went all the way through college. I went to Florida State. I became the team captain. And so I spent my whole life in athletics. And then from there, I got very into yoga, and which is different than swimming, but I loved it. It just made me feel so good. And I just became obsessed with it. And more for the physical aspects, but I knew there was like a lot more to yoga. So I decided to do a yoga teacher training program here in Tampa. And I did this program just to learn. I was not intending on becoming a yoga teacher. I just loved yoga and wanted to dive deeper into like the philosophy behind yoga. And in the program, I met Ryan DeBon. Ryan DeBon is the co-founder of Defender Shield. I am not the founder of Defender Shield. I'm the current CEO and co-owner of the company. But Ryan DeBon and his dad, Daniel DeBon, who co-authored Radiation Nation, our EMF guide, that was well before its time when it came out. I met him in the training program, and I was currently working as an executive in retail. And I learned about the company that him and his dad had started very recently. And that was the first time I heard about EMF radiation. And this was back in 2016, whereas the company had been around, just him and his dad doing it for 5 years. So we just celebrated 14 years this week, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
So I learned about the company. I learned about this EMF radiation, and I'm just like, wow, how did I not know about this? I've been in the health and wellness space for so long, and this is just not something anyone's talking about. But this is such a great idea. Like, I want to have these products to protect myself and my future kids. At the time, I didn't have any kids. And I went on to a couple years later, kept on with my current position, didn't think much of it except for getting the products and buying Defender Shield products and using them. A couple years later, I had my first son, and I decided to leave my job. So it was very demanding, high pressure, a lot of hours. That's how retail management is. And I was really, when I was ready to go back to work, really trying to figure out, I want to do something that is meaningful, that's going to help people, and use my previous experience and management and operations and all that, and help another place. And I thought of Defender Shield, and I thought of Ryan. And I reached out to Ryan and I said, hey, I love what you guys did. How are things? Like, can I have a job? And I met with Dan. And that was the first time meeting Dan. And they were like, yeah, like, let's bring you on. I wasn't asking for much. I just wanted to come in and help and be meaningful somewhere. So I came and joined Defender Shield now 7.5 years ago. And yeah, I worked my way up, and now I'm co-owner of the company. And it's been a really amazing opportunity and just exciting forefront to be on, because it's obviously such a prevalent problem that so many people are unaware of. And I just am thankful that I have been aware of it for so long, and like taking measures to like mitigate exposure for myself, my family, and spread education to all of society, and educate our customers.
Yeah, to the point of them kind of being the forefront and maybe a bit ahead of their time in 2016, starting Defender Shield.
2011 Defender Shield started. Yes.
So
which is incredible if you think.
Is even more incredible because we know it's around us all the time, and we see this 5G and all these 5G towers, and we know that everything we use, I mean, whether it's a phone, a computer, a tablet, a TV, no matter what it is, even Wi-Fi emits this as well. And I think the educational point is what everyone doesn't seem to know yet. And it's starting to gain a little bit of traction, which I love to see because my dad and myself are a bit nerds on the EMF side of things and trying to ground ourselves and, use copper wire and whatnot to go into the ground and then connect it to our beds and go to the beach and go on the sand and, try to ground ourselves every single day. The educational standpoint is definitely something that's lacking right now. The question to you is, we see so many products and we see so many, Faraday bags and we see so many I have grounding sheets at home. What's the makeup of an EMF radiation protection product? What do you guys put in there?
Yeah. I'm not going to go give away our secrets, but we, in general, it's well known that silver blocks a high level of wireless radiation, so RF radiation, which is what emits all the signals that we don't see in our environments. ELF is different, and that is what emits from anything that's plugged in, that has batteries, anything that is an electronic device. So those two things combined are like what our bread and butter is, and what we were the first ever to do is to come up with a combination of, it's just various metals in different amounts and different layers and different substrates, which is like a material that the metals are built upon. With Dan's extensive engineering background in the telecom space, he was able to take that knowledge and say, okay, I know this, and if we layer and combine these things together, we have a full spectrum protection. And no one at that time was protecting the full spectrum. In fact, no one is even today, because we continue to stay looking ahead. When we knew 5G was coming out, 3 years before that, we started researching, okay, our shielding is going to have to block higher frequencies. What can we do? And we solved that problem. And we know 6G is coming, and we're working on that. So I think aluminum foil, we know the joke about aluminum foil hats and everything, but literally that is a material that does block some frequencies within the RF spectrum. So it's materials like that, plus others that reach the high spectrum of shielding that our products have.
Okay, interesting. I mean, it's always good to stay ahead of the curve, and like you say, like we see so many products on Amazon, and I bought a phone sleeve a while ago from Amazon. Yeah, it worked for about. Yeah, of course. I wasn't aware of you guys yet, which is funny. You guys are.
Yeah, it's such a small world.
Yeah, and that's kind of why we decided to
meet up in person and do this.
In person and do the podcast in person.
I will speak to the market now, because while we've been around for 14 years, there have been so many other products to come onto the market, many not, with the cheapest and least effective shielding. So all I can encourage anyone to do to know what they're actually buying is just look at the third-party testing. We have all of our materials third-party tested. We share the graphs on our website about the performance of each material that we use. And we like to think it's pretty simple the way that our products work. We just incorporate that into simple everyday products like cell phone cases, tablet cases, clothing, and that's how it works. It's a physical barrier. So anything between your device and your body with our shielding in it is going to block that up to 99%. So
that's awesome.
We know there's a lot of other stickers and pendants and even devices that mitigate or claim to mitigate the frequencies and all of that stuff. And we truly don't fully understand how those are supposed to work, but they're out there. Anyone who wants to look into EMF protection, I just encourage you to look at the third-party testing and really try to make sense of what you're reading, and does it make sense to you how that kind of works?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like you get what you pay for, right? Like, for me, like the one Amazon phone sleeve I had worked for about a month, and then now, it doesn't work anymore.
So you bought a Faraday bag, and it
I
what?
bought, it was just a generic Amazon like phone sleeve, simply just for your phone, real small and compact, almost like a small purse, if you will, for your phone. Yeah, that didn't work very long. It was very cheap, and it's kind of what you get what you pay for. So the quality isn't going to be the best, and to your point, third party testing is definitely important. to look at, and we've upgraded since then. But
We'll have to make sure you get upgraded again today
well,
with the Defender
that would be
Shield
awesome. That would be
product.
awesome. But
And yeah, we will
yeah,
not be the cheapest in the market. We'll actually probably be the most expensive on the market. But if you want the highest level of protection, that's what we offer. We're
so
not for everyone. If you want just a cheap thing that's going to make you feel okay, like that's okay. But um, we can't use less expensive materials because the shielding is quite costly. And then we build using the highest quality, other materials that we can.
absolutely. What would you say is the effect? So why should someone buy a Defender Shield product? What's the effect and what's the difference of 5G and what we're going to see 6G soon? What's the effect of all this radiation that's around us every single day? What's the difference of removing it? How are we going to feel? What's the difference?
So most people, 80% of people in the population do not have a disease called um, electromagnetic hypersensitivity. So we may not feel the effects, whether it's affecting us or not. We might not feel bad or being around all these signals. But 20% of the population has EHS, and it's not medically recognized in our country, but in Europe it is. And because of that, people that really feel the physical effects of being surrounded by Wi-Fi and 5G and your cell phone and all of these things, people that it's kind of one of those things where you might have to go down rabbit holes and for yourself figure out what is wrong with me because our medical system doesn't recognize it. So the people that have discovered that, they come to us and they're like, I just feel so much better using your products. And the effects that people can feel with EMF are could be it's such a wide range, so it's so hard to pinpoint and probably diagnose because it's like brain fog, headaches, tingling sensations when touching the phone or having your laptop on your lap, fertility issues, just joint pain, mental health issues. Like it's so pervasive in our bodies, and you don't really know, am I being affected by this or not? And by eliminating and reducing your exposure, if that helps you feel better, then you're someone that's affected, like the guy on Better Call Saul, if you ever saw that show. But that really like was a mainstream way of being like, this is, I mean, they made him look crazy, but like, this is how it makes people's lives. Like, it really is very detrimental. And so we're just happy to be able to provide solutions to help people feel better.
Yeah, and I think almost we should all be using these solutions and these products. Me myself, whenever I'm in an electric car, uh, depending on how much electronics is within that car in these newer cars, I start to get a headache. So when I test drive a car, when I'm looking to buy one, I test drive it to see if I'm going to get a headache or not necessarily how the car drives, which is unfortunate to say nowadays, but whenever I try to limit myself and I try to put my phone in the house and where the TV and the computer is and try to stand outside every single day for at least 10 minutes, ground myself, walk barefoot in the grass and try to recharge almost, I start to feel significantly better. I start to sleep better when I have grounded sheets and I make sure that my phone, my computer, my monitor, everything is out of my room because the electromagnetic frequencies, the EMF is for everyone that doesn't know what EMF means, seem to play a role within me. I'm not sure if I'm part of that 20% or not, but
It sounds like you are. And it's great that you recognize that and you know the triggers for that. And you are not the first person I've heard with feeling badly being in all electric vehicles. In fact, our most popular blog is Are Teslas Bad for You? And it's just a huge thing people are thinking and wondering. And if you feel bad, then it's bad for you. You know, we've had people contact us that are like, I just bought a Tesla and I feel I can't have this Tesla. Like I feel so bad. I can't even drive. It makes me feel so bad. And it's like, wow, that is maybe you never felt it before, but it's so surrounding you in something like that that now like you are sensitive to it.
yeah,
And it's
it's
a good
almost
thing.
like feeling a constant hangover. I think
I've never been hungover. I don't know what you're talking about.
uh, well, to have that thought in our head as well, a lot of it stops right there. So a lot of it stops where, oh, whenever I'm in a Tesla or whenever I'm in an electric car of some sort, and I start to get a headache, I just have a headache. It'll go away eventually. But I think what we're not realizing is we're frying our insides when we're around that much electronics if you start to feel headaches. And even if you don't start to feel headaches, you might be doing a similar thing. EMF is radiation that's, if you were to think about it chemo wise, chemo is radiation. Your hair starts to fall out and whatnot. It's not necessarily because of cancer. Your hair falling out is because of radiation that they use. Now, it's not quite the exact same radiation, but at the same way, we have to be careful with how much we're exposing ourselves to make sure that we're not actually harming our internal bodies. And that shows with our skin. We age a lot quicker. We start to develop a couple more problems medically as well. So I love what you guys are doing. Definitely will have to check out a lot more of what you guys have. Um, my question to you is kind of going back to the technologies that we have nowadays. We have this fiber optic, Wi-Fi. We used to have 4G. We used to have 3G before that. What's the difference between all of them? Is it simply an increase in frequency?
Right. Every, what's the word? Like every version of G that comes out, it uses a different frequency range band dictated by the FCC. And so it started in one place, and now because those, in order for 5G and 6G and beyond to operate at such high and quick rates, we have to go to higher and higher frequencies for that to happen, for the technology to work better and better, because for some reason we need faster and better and quicker and immediate, and we don't want to wait for our phone to load. Like, it has to be right now, and we have to stream everything, and that is just a metaphor for how we are as a society. Absolutely. So, but basically, for example, the problem when 5G was introduced, one is multiple fold. One is, yes, it's higher frequencies, and there's actually no human studies done on those frequency ranges. But what we know from studies done on 4G and in past, there are physical effects. And mainstream media and mainstream telecom likes to argue and debunk those science studies. But if there's even a question in people's minds, like, why would you not protect yourself? Even if it's not real, which we believe, and there's facts showing that it is real. But it's like, why would you just ignore it when there's something you can do? And pushing our products completely out of the picture, there are things you can do just to limit your exposure, not even to shield it. So back to your original question. So 4G had its frequency ranges. Now we've added 5G, but we didn't take away 4G. Okay. So now it's 4G and 5G. And then it's going to be 6G. And so it's just compounding the problem because we're not removing things out of the environment. We're adding constantly. Okay. And the load on the body over time, like you said, grounding helps you eliminate some of those frequencies and, other practices that we can do. But it's just like anything else, like toxins in general, pollutants, things that are in our food, it can build up over time. And if we don't, mitigate that, who knows? We don't know, because we've only had this type of technology for 20 years. In 20 years, what does that look like for us? It's unknown, but we do know, let's try to protect it ourselves and our families and, everyone who wants to be educated and protect themselves. That's the best we can do. We cannot change our world and our environment, but you can control your personal environment. And that's what we try to promote, is like, it can be a scary topic when you first learn about it and just realize like how much is surrounding you and your babies and your kids and your families. But we try to keep a very matter of fact way about it and say, like, we're not claiming like it's going to kill you, but for some people it might, because it can change your DNA. It can cause tumors and cancer. And we know that, but we don't try to fearmonger. We just say, hey, just try to, do the things. We have steps to take, and try not to worry, because like you can't change like the whole world. And we know worrying, stress makes everything in our health worse. So
yeah. We're not saying to, go out to the countryside and live in a cabin for the rest of your life with no phone. No.
Which, if you can do that, more power to you. That would be amazing. Absolutely. But not many people in society can afford to do that. They have jobs.
I think about it every day. But yeah, to live in mountains, not in Florida, but to live in mountains.
Well, you wouldn't live in Florida if you were living in a mountain.
But yeah, to take that first step of at least mitigating that risk and trying to lessen your exposure is definitely a great starting step. And to have a product such as Defender Shield that's not only good quality, but will last you, right? And it will actually protect you for a long period of time is definitely a great first step to start with. Funnily enough, it's something that reminded me. I saw a study a long time ago, and it might not have been a study, it might have been a blog. Um, when Steve Jobs first created Apple, and he came out with the laptop, so the MacBook Air, or MacBook Pro, I'm not sure which was the first one, but there was a written study or written blog that he would never let his kids use that product on their lap, which is wild to think of. You know, they're called laptops for a reason, and the person who founded one of the most famous ones was said to never let his kids use it. A couple years down the line, after it being so many years that came out, we kind of realized that there was some sort of radiation within all these laptops that caused an infertility decrease or increase in infertility, which is something scary enough for our population right now. Knowing that to think of there's more generations below me, and I'm a young generation,
Right.
is wild.
Yeah.
To see, like, for me as a kid, I got my first phone when I was 15 years old, and that was for me because I moved out of the country. So to take a guess on when I would have gotten my first phone probably would have been later. But kids nowadays, I'm seeing 6-year-olds with phones.
It's very disturbing.
If we're starting at 6 years old, at 5 years old, or 10 years old with phones and laptops and computers and Wi-Fi everywhere, and now we're at 5G, we might get to 6G soon. To see all that radiation, that even just the infertility decrease is scary. We might not have a population soon. We might skip a generation. So definitely protecting yourself is something that I'm a big advocate of. So I'm very happy to be able to have this discussion with you. Is there anything you'd like to add on that?
Well, I am a mom of two kids, and Michelle, our COO, and myself actually wrote a children's book called Henry's Tech Free Adventure. I am obviously super passionate about protecting children specifically because I have my own, and it's because their bodies are more vulnerable to the effects of the EMF because they have a higher water content. So the electrons travel faster throughout their body. They also have a thinner skull. And so we use the study, and I'm sure maybe you've seen it. It's pretty popular, where it shows a 6-foot man with a cell phone up to his head, and the cell phone signal goes 2 inches into his brain. With a 6-year-old child, that signal goes completely through the brain. So we know that because of just children's developing bodies, and their cells are multiplying at a much more rapid pace. Obviously, like, they're growing, and so the concern is that if some DNA gets damaged, then 20 years down the line, maybe that's going to turn into something that we can't anticipate. And as parents, it's like the most scary time, I would say. Like, every generation has its fears, but this is like can literally change like the trajectory of our children's health, like for the whole rest of their lives. And so our book is just about, it makes it easy for kids to understand, like, it's a story about a boy named Henry that has an iPad, and his family goes on a trip, and his parents say, you cannot bring your iPad, like, this is a screen free trip. And he sneaks it, and he keeps on sneaking it. And then, there's a come to Jesus moment where his parents had to sit him down, like, here's why. And then he turns out, and has great fun without the iPad. And it is hard to make kids worry about this stuff. And nor do we want them to worry, but we want to teach them safe practices. Like, my kids have an iPad, but there are limits to it, and there's simple things we can do. They know not to put it on their lap. We obviously have Defender Shield cases, but if you don't, keep it away from your body. Don't let them put it on their lap. Have, create limits with it. That's the whole other side. And we're not going to get into that because it's a whole nother podcast. And you could speak to more of an expert on, like, the child psychology of screens and just what social, like, all that. That's another aspect of it besides just the radiation, simply admitting. Yeah. So, and Like there are so many facets to a device for children, not to mention our eyes. So we have a total eye health plus blue light filter eye supplement. And we developed that because the amount of time that we're all spending on screens can damage our eyes over the long term. And people feel bad. People feel drained. They feel their eyes are dry. They feel tired. They get migraines. And a lot of that's related to the amount of time that a lot of people's jobs require them to stare at a screen all day. So we developed this product to help with that. And it really does make a difference. And that's like it's not EMF. Actually, blue light is a form of EMF radiation, but it's on the visible spectrum. So that's like another factor we have to think about, especially with kids. There's a study done in Japan showing that there's such an increase in nearsightedness with children over the past like 10 years that was never, and it's directly related to the amount of screen time they have.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's actually like causing them to have bad eyesight like early on in life, which, that's another thing. Yeah, kids, I'm really passionate about sharing it for parents so they can teach their kids safe tech practices.
Absolutely, and it's good to have at least an idea of what safe practices can be around technology because, like we mentioned earlier, getting away from it is definitely not the easiest thing anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny that you mentioned that with kids, and it is definitely a full nother podcast we could talk about. I remember as a kid just being outside, just playing outside, and it didn't matter what we did. And the old saying of all our parents saying, come in
When the sun goes down, when the
sun
street light
goes
comes
down.
on.
And I mean, for me, that was true. I'm definitely part of a younger generation where
Yeah.
there was a bit more technology introduced in our younger age. But at the same time, like I was always trying to be a kid, and that's kind of where when technology got introduced into my life, and my dad ended up becoming kind of a nerd about it and looking up all this stuff. And since he's retired, it's gotten only worse. So
I love that.
I learned a lot from him and kind of got curious for myself as well. Like, how much technology are we really around? So it's definitely good to know that there's a stepping stone on how we can limit that, at least limit our exposure.
What you just said is just having awareness. So wherever you are right now, whoever's listening, just take stock, like wherever you're sitting, what is around you? Do you have a laptop? Do you have your phone? Do you have a Wi-Fi router? Do you have other people with phones around you? Do you have a tablet? Do you have a lamp? Do you have a computer plugged in? All of these are sources. And so Dan, our founder, he has always used this analogy, and I think it's a great one. It's bees in the room. One bee won't kill you, but 1,000 bees will. So it's like, okay, what can I remove out of my space, my workspace? Because since I have to be on this laptop or working on my computer, can I make sure I'm not in the same room as my Wi-Fi? Can I hardwire to Ethernet and completely eliminate the Wi-Fi? Can I have my phone across the room so it's not right next to me the whole day? So there's so many things we can do if we just think about it, try to rewire our practices and our habits.
Absolutely, and that almost got me to the Ethernet side of things. It almost got me to completely get rid of my headphones for the gym because we all use Bluetooth headphones.
Mm-hmm.
It is definitely easier without a wire, but it's definitely safer to have.
I was seeing if we had
to
our.
have a wire. I know you guys have the radiation-free headphones.
Yeah, so Bluetooth headphones, completely convenient. Oh wow, how great! Like, except I think people lose them a lot. But if you don't keep up with them,
AirPods,
yeah, like wow, what a convenient thing. But like, what's not convenient is like it's sending a signal through your brain and also to your phone. Bluetooth signal through your brain and to your phone. So that's two signals. We have air tube headphones, which have excellent sound quality that we worked on for years to get the audio level to where we wanted it. And are they as like free? No, because they're wired, but like that is the safer choice. The safer choice isn't always the most convenient choice. And I think that can apply to most things in health. Is it easier to go to fast food or like cook a healthy meal? Right? It's harder to cook a healthy meal, but that's what we should do for our health. I know that, and we're not against technology. Like we know, like we sell online. I mean that we have to be really involved with technology, and so we know it's not going anywhere. But it's just like try to
Can we try
just
to
bring
mitigate it a
awareness
little
to
bit?
this. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So to that point, you've been with the company, you said, for 7.5 years. What have you guys done in the past to kind of make sure that Defender Shield can be a staple and at least mitigating that EMF risk?
Well, just the way that we stay ahead of the market in our shielding technology and our product offerings. And we have a product that can help anyone. We have so many different clothing items and blankets and hats and cases for your devices. Like there's really not, we have shield wallpaper, like we have shielding that you can buy and just make it anything you want. So I feel like we are the solution for anyone looking for any type of protection. For us, a huge thing that's always been super important to us is our customer service and our sort of concierge, like uh, the way that we handle questions and concerns. We want to be that resource for people. Our website is just full of years and years of blogs and articles and science and research, and we keep those updated regularly so that we're always like on the forefront of having the latest information. But I think people being able to literally call and speak to, you met Paulina, and she's our social media manager, so she's pushing things out and educating people on social media channels. We've got the team that can, you can speak to a real person and like know that we're a legitimate company that knows what they're talking about and what they're doing, because we want people to like have like a source of truth that they can, because who knows what online is going to tell you. Like there's so like anything you research in any topic, it's like you're just more confused. Like what's the real source, what's the truth? And we're like, hey, call us, call us and we'll talk to you. And sometimes their conversations are like an hour long, and I'm not encouraging you to call and speak to them for an hour, but really they're able to like help you navigate this new sort of, I don't know, topic for or awareness that you might have.
Okay, yeah, and that's awesome that you guys do that and have that resource for everyone as well. It's almost sad to say that it is starting to become more rare to talk to a real person and
Yes.
kind of get real information from a legit company. Um, yeah, yeah, it's and we're seeing it more and more with AI, so it's definitely very nice to be able to speak to a real person. Um,
It's almost so close to a real person. Sometimes you're
you're
like
not
second
certain
guessing
anymore.
yourself. You're like, is this no, this can't be a real, send me to a real, and then you can yell at them because
Yeah.
it's a computer.
Well, so what challenges did you guys go through? And my last two questions would be, what challenges did you go through that you've overcome at this point, kind of being with the company for 7 years
Mhm.
and knowing what Dan has done in the past as well? And then what are we seeing for the future? Are we seeing more products being brought out? What are we seeing in that aspect?
Some major challenges that we have had to overcome and find ways of overcoming really came out of nowhere. Things like all relating to tech. So we rely on Google just like most businesses do. And when they have algorithm updates, sometimes the type of website that they deem you to be, it just gets deranked and you lose lots and lots of traffic. So you cannot control that, and you have to find ways around it and to build yourself back up. And because we are in the mainstream looked at as like this is a controversial topic for whatever reason. We don't think it's controversial, but it is. So the major platforms like Google, like Amazon, in fact, our types of products are hit or miss whether we can even advertise on Amazon. It depends on the day and how the Amazon bot that crawls our page is feeling. We had to like, it just teaches you you can't have all of your eggs in one basket, and you need to have multiple points of getting new customers and being in front of people on many different platforms so that you don't get totally blindsided and lose a bunch of traffic or customers from one source. That was one, I guess, two kind of things that have actually happened to us. I don't want to get sad, but Ryan DeBon actually passed away, the guy who brought me into the business. And that was, he was the heart. Him and Dan were the heart of Defender Shield. And he personally built everything you see online and was just, this was like his baby. And he was so passionate about it. And when like losing him was very difficult for the business, for us. I mean, I worked alongside him for 4 years, and he was very special and very, very talented. And obviously you can't predict something like that. So that was like, all right, what do we do now? We had never questioned, like it's more just like how do we try to fill this void that really can never be filled, but still, move forward and have his legacy still continue on and be successful.
Absolutely. What are we, in kind of the last question I had before we wrap up, what are we seeing in the future for Thunder Shield? What's any insights if you could give me?
Well, I think that we were so before our time that the market is catching up, but I think that's only going to keep on happening. And that goes for health and wellness in general, because we have a sick society, especially this country, and I think we hope that people will turn more to like, how can I heal myself? How can I not have to rely on like the medical community to tell me what's wrong, or the Western medical kind of, for obviously the advancements we made in the medical community. However, there's a holistic side, and like this is very much of a topic of discussion with holistic practitioners, and we have a lot of people who sell our products to their clients and whatnot. So I just think more and more awareness is just going to bring more and more customers to us, and really we just want to spread awareness and education. We're always coming out with new products. We listen to our customers, and we just want to have things that just help improve. We want our products to be like, oh, you're already using a blanket, we'll use a Defender Shield one with shielding in it so that you can lie in your bed and your body's protected. Like things that people already have, cell phone cases, purses, bags, crossbody, hip packs, like all the things you already need. We want to be functional in your life and just fit in, but also be protecting you at the same time.
That's great. That's great. And where can we find any Defender Shield products or your social medias or more education?
Yes, if you have a lot of time on your hands, you can go to our website, defendershield.com, and read the hundreds of articles and blogs that we have there. But we have defendershield.com. All of our social media handles are at Defender Shield. And we also sell on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, I'll have that all in the description below. Kylen, it was a pleasure having you today on the podcast, and thank you so much again for letting us use your setup. It was awesome to have this conversation with you. Hopefully, we'll get to have.
There'll be a part two.
We'll have to get to do it again.
Yeah, thank you, Elliot. I really appreciate it too.